welcome to our London History Podcast, where we share our love of London, its people, places and history in 20-minute espresso shot episodes served with a dash of personality. I am Hazel Baker, London tour guide and CEO of London Guided Walks. And don't forget, we've launched the Daily London, providing you with daily inspiration of things to do in London for Londoners. You can listen on iTunes, Spotify, or even add it to your Alexa flash briefings. Also to say that our guided walks and treasure hunts are now back. Hurrah! We are now official partners of Visit Greenwich, which means yes, indeed, we have a Greenwich London walk for you. Also a medieval walk, Ghosts and Gallows of Fleet Street. For literature lovers, we have our Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde walk, and also a brand new virtual tour of Paddington Bear in London. Our treasure hunts are back as well, and we have our temple treasure hunt ready and waiting for you, 100% COVID-19 secure. Right, on with the show. Today, the British Museum has become one of the largest museums in the world, covering a staggering area of over 92,000 square metres. It has a permanent collection of over 8 million works from all continents. It was established in 1753, largely based on the 71,000 item collection of the physician, naturalist and collector Sir Hans Sloane. The British Museum first opened to the public in 1759 at Montague House, which is on the site of the modern-day museum. Its expansion over the next 250 years resulted in the creation of several branch institutions, the first being what is now known as the Natural History Museum. Taking advantage of the quieter London streets, City of London tour guide Ian McDiarmid and I visited the British Museum not once, but twice. And we're here today to share our experiences. So hello, Ian.
Hello.
So Ian, you kindly booked the tickets for us. So what was the experience like?
It was good. It was nice and easy and straightforward. So you go onto the British Museum website, you select your date and time. It's timed entry. You get your tickets and it's very straightforward and it's free. They ask you for a donation and then you turn up. And then on the turning up part, we had differing experiences, didn't we? We went, I think, at the same time on the same day. But the first time 3 weeks ago, we had to join quite a large queue and it was pretty slow moving. It wasn't bad, but it took a while to get in there and then it was pretty crowded. And then the second time we went this week and it was absolutely fine. There was no queue at all. And indeed, when we got in there, our timed entrance was 10:30. It was empty, which was great. Maybe, Hazel, I could ask you to describe the route that you're forced to go along?
Yeah, so a set route has been designed for everybody's safety, a one-way route. And that made a nice change for me because I saw things that I haven't seen in a very long time, usually because there's so many people there that I just avoid it and go to the quieter areas of the museum. So for the route, you go in through the main entrance on Great Russell Street via the security, and you enter the Great Court, which is the largest covered public space in Europe. And that's designed by Foster and Partners, familiar name for London architecture. And the Great Court is a 2-acre space enclosed by a spectacular glass roof. It's really quite iconic, and it's made from 3,212 panels of glass, and no two panels are the same. It's really quite a wonderful space. And then the first collection that you go into is the Egyptian Gallery, which is brilliant. And the first thing you see is the Rosetta Stone, normally surrounded by loads of school kids. Now you can see it there, and that was rather wonderful. So you go through about 2/3 of the ancient Egypt gallery, and then you dip into the Middle East with the Assyrian sculptures, and then you're in ancient Greece and Rome. And there they have some fantastic vases, and also there's the Parthenon section, which used to be known as the Elgin Marbles. After that, then you re-enter the Great Courtyard, have a cup of coffee, and then you go via the nice shop, the Granville Room, into then the Collecting the World, and also then the King's Library, which is now called the Enlightenment Gallery. And that was built to house King George III's collection of more over than 65,000 books that have been donated to the nation by his son George IV. And it's a really lovely room. It's so long. It's 300 feet long. It's 41 feet high. It's 30 feet across. It's amazing. In 97, with the opening of the British Library at St Pancras, the books were transferred to the new library building and is now used to house a major permanent exhibition using thousands of objects from the museum's collection. And it's to show the beginning of the understanding that we had in the Age of Enlightenment. After that, you hit Mexico and then North America before entering the Wellcome Trust Gallery, Living and Dying, and then you exit on Montague Place, which is the opposite side of the museum than you entered on Great Russell Street. But saying that, we spent 2 hours each visit there.
Yes.
And there was plenty to see in that time. We didn't feel rushed.
The Egyptian collection in the British Museum is regarded by the British Museum, at least, and I'm sure pretty much everybody else, as being the finest outside Cairo. So it's of enormous importance. The trouble is, as you were saying, Hazel, is that whenever I go to the British Museum, you kind of stick your head around the corner in the entrance and you just think, oh, I'm not going in there. I mean, it just looks like a sort of rugby scrum most times.
Yeah.
And now you can go round and you can go round fairly peacefully, can't you? You can spend time on the objects. And not only is this important for whatever you're looking at, but I think it's particularly important with Egyptian things, because I'm fascinated by ancient Egypt, but I'm in no way an expert on it. Mm-hmm. And therefore it's kind of very important for me, and I'm sure I'm speaking for most people, to try and get some kind of context behind what you're looking at. And it's enormously important just to spend a bit of time and to realise how old what you're looking at is, and try and place it within those 3,000 and a bit years of ancient Egyptian history.
Yeah.
And also to place them geographically as well. I mean, I find that, I don't know why, but I find that psychologically kind of necessary to try and remember things about the objects that I've seen.
We've both been to Egypt, also the Met in New York.
And the Louvre.
And the Louvre. So we're not novices in this, but it is such a vast history. It takes your mind a while to put these together. So we have high expectations of the experiences, especially being delivered by the Met. And also the Turin Museum was really rather fabulous. So the collection, you walk through the Egyptian stuff. What was nice was that you could actually sit on the benches. They're normally filled with bored children. The first time I went, I saw all these QR codes and regretted not bringing my headphones. So the second time I went, I purposely took my headphones and in search of these QR codes, wanting to know more. But what I found after a lot of energy was that they're just literally a couple of minutes of overall information about the gallery, and you don't get anything else. So that was a big letdown for me. And a real wasted opportunity, because, so they can't use the audio tour because of COVID, with being handsets, but they could have moved those files onto Spotify, which is what you're forced to listen through. And then, of course, you have to contend with all the adverts if you've got a free Spotify account like myself. And it just wasn't worth it. And also, there is very little information about most of the objects that you're going to be looking at, other than a couple of lines on a piece of cardboard next to the artifact. You don't get anything, and that's the same experience you get at the Cairo Museum, and you do expect with the British Museum to be offering a lot more than that.
I just couldn't get it to work. I should say that Hazel is far better at things like this than I am. You can make that easier for yourself by downloading Spotify before you go.
Yeah.
And then finally, once you've got it, it's not really worth bothering with, is it? I mean, the introduction was well done, but it didn't tell us anything that we didn't know already. Or
that you could read the little snippet of next to what you're looking at.
And then there was a disappointing lack of further QR codes to listen to. I was expecting that they'd go into detail on some of the objects.
Yeah, so this wasn't an audio tour, but they could have quite easily have done that, especially with the reduced set route and also the time they've had to open up. So it is a very minimal visitor experience if you're wanting to know more than just what a couple of lines next to the artifact tell you.
Going back to what you were saying about being able to spend time with the objects, that was really good. So when you go into the Egyptian rooms, or as I normally do, you stick your head round and then avoid it, your line of sight is dominated by this huge bust of Amenhotep III.
Well, it was.
But it was. But this is one of the good things. You can read a bit about the objects and try and remember it. And this was reworked about a century later to look like Ramesses II.
That's right.
And again, this is bits of information that I've taken in from going around the British Museum, that Ramesses II was the pharaoh who had reworked the largest number of statues to...
Well, he also had the longest reign, 66 years and 2 months to be precise.
No, that was Ramesses the... Was it? Oh, yes, it was, of course. Yeah. I'm getting my Ramesses. Yeah.
You see? But that's exactly what you're saying, is things are missing. It's hard for you to join the stories up, really, and also to layer the knowledge that you already have. And, of course, I'm not expecting them to be able to move all these magnificent things around for the new COVID route, but the timelines are mixed up, and there's nothing else helping you unravel the mysteries. It's a very old style of museum, and they could do so much more. Once again, we have been spoilt with the Met, we have been spoilt with the Louvre, but also we were paid to enter the Louvre, we've paid to get to Met. This is a free experience, minus the donations, and that's something we have to remember.
Because the Met in New York is in theory free, but they're kind of, unless you hand over $20. But anyway, it was this huge bust of Ramesses II or Amenhotep III, both of them, which absolutely dominates your line of sight. And it's a fantastic thing, and I've seen it so many times. And yesterday, could go and sit on a bench and just sit there and look at it for ages and not be under pressure and not have sight lines ruined, not have my ears assaulted by screaming kids. That was great.
Yeah, and also being able to have a look at the detail of like the sarcophagi as well. Normally you've got fingerprints on all the glass around it and lots of little kids in your way where you feel that you can't really elbow them, but they weren't there. And you could actually bend down and have a look at the hieroglyphs and the detail and the work. So you could actually, for me, I had a much better connection with the collection because I could see it, and also I had the time and space to enjoy it.
Yeah, they've got some fantastic statuettes, haven't they, of various officials. And again, they stand on their own, and they're in glass cases, and normally you just can't see them.
And of course, the collection is biased towards funerary objects, as these are what have best survived. Saying that, though, I do love the limestone stela of 3 Bes figures in relief, with a mini Bes as well. Bes was an Egyptian male god, a dwarf god actually, a protector of children and family, god of good luck and prosperity. And the British Museum has over 800 associated objects to Bes, but this is my favourite one. It really does show cheeky personality, and I'll include a link to that in the show notes. And the ancient Greek section is amazing as well, and the Greek vases are just beautiful. But with some of these things, you really need to know how they're made to understand the real beauty of this craftsmanship. And that's what's lacking. There's no videos on how the ancient Greeks did these. Now I know, which is maybe why it gets me excited when I see the delicate work and seeing the really artistry and the movement in these black figures. But most people just have a look and go, oh yeah, all right, and then walk on, and that makes me really sad. This marble Kuros, which is of a naked youth, a boy of noble rank, and he would have been with other statues, boys and girls, lining the sacred road to Didyma, which was the oracular shrine of Apollo at Miletus, and it would have been a fantastic sight. And yet it is a beautiful statue, but sadly the context in which this statue would have been used, the visual and spiritual effect that this would have created as you go along the sacred road towards the temple would have been really quite powerful. and is just completely lost. What people see, it's just a partial statue with a couple of lines underneath it, and it really does miss the human connection, which is what we all crave, really. And this is something from about 550 BC.
It feels as though you need to be an expert before you go. You need to, you need to know the stuff, don't you? Really, to appreciate it. Yeah, I think the fact we didn't have access to the audio guide in some way, that's not really their fault, though. They could have done better on that, but.
And that's what's missing. It's literally artifacts in glass cases with a couple of lines, and that's it. You're done.
For me, it was the Egyptian stuff that was the big draw, because that's the stuff that I have avoided looking at in the past. As a result of that, I was completely tired out. Going around a museum is just like going around an art gallery, really. You can take in so much, and then you've had enough. And I'm saying all this because the prescribed route really isn't a limitation. I mean, in my case, looking at things that you were interested in but just didn't feel comfortable looking at, and the great thing about going now is that you can go and have a look at them.
Yeah, it was worthwhile doing. I certainly will be going back again. And next time I'll be putting my blinkers on, and I won't be taking them off until I get to ancient Greece.
So Hazel, was there anything else about the general visitor experience that struck you going round?
Yeah, I managed to get a coffee without queuing for an hour, so that was nice. And also, even though there was a queue for the ladies' toilets, it wasn't as bad as it has been in previous years. So
yeah. That's one thing that strikes me whenever you go around there. There's always a huge queue outside the ladies, and I think you explained it to me that British planning laws, you have to allocate the same amount of space to the ladies as you do to the gents.
That's
it's
right,
absurd,
British
isn't
standards.
it? Why do they do that? Why don't they just give the ladies double the space? I mean, it's just so inadequate, the British Museum, when you normally go around there. Sorry to harp on about this.
No,
but
you can thank Foster for that one. And his partners.
Well, also, and the regulations that he had to follow.
He didn't have to follow the minimum.
Oh, okay.
So, Ian, what are your recommendations for people to see at the British Museum at the moment?
Well, as already mentioned, I really like that colossal head of Amenhotep III, which was subsequently remodelled probably to look like Ramesses II. The changes that were made, I just quickly mention this, the changes that were made to the face was that the cosmetics on the eyes was reduced and two little holes were drilled either side of the mouth to make the lips look smaller. That was the changes to the face to Ramesses, to make it look like Ramesses. But anyway, even with these changes, you've got this fantastic head made of granite with these cosmetic lines on the eyes, a rather round nose, full cheeks, these rather large lips, and the whole effect on the face is a sort of series of curves. And it has a kind of geometrical, pleasing quietness to it, and it is very serene, and the whole thing is just very magisterial, and you can imagine being overawed by the power and the godlike qualities of Amenhotep III and then Ramesses II. As I say, I mean, it dominates the room in terms of its size, and it's just fantastic to be able to go and see it properly.
And anything else on your favourite list for people to see?
Yes, I like the false doors that they've got in there, and there's one very large one to a man named Ptah Shepsi. So false doors were sides of the tombs of people, and a lot of the high officials in Egypt were buried in so-called Mastaba tombs. Mastaba means that comes from the Arabic, means they look a bit like a bench. And one of the sides of these tombs often had a false door, and a false door is a carving that looks like a door and was a means for the spirit of the dead to pass through the tomb and also to be communicated with by the living, so they could make offerings and these would go pass through the false door itself. And this one is absolutely huge, a bit like the head I was talking about. I'm impressed by the sheer size of these monuments, and it's fantastic because it's got very good remains of the original colouring in yellow and red ochre, lots of carving on it, and I have written a blog post about this one, so that's rather good timing, isn't it? And that's on the website nowish.
Yeah, I'll add the link to the show notes.
Thank you very much, Hazel.
You're welcome, Ian.
And what about you, Hazel? Do you have a favourite object to talk about?
Not one, but in the ancient Greek section, there are these electrotypes, which are copies of 19 electrum coins that were found in a jug in the foundations of a temple of Artemis at Ephesus. And they're the oldest known hoard of coins in existence. So I think they're really rather remarkable. But I do love the marble Crouching Venus. The Greek marble, or perhaps it was bronze original, is now lost, but that was probably made between 200 and 100 BC. The Nereid monument is pretty special as well, and I think a lot of people really enjoy seeing that one. So to summarise, you've got space, everyone's wearing masks, and it was a very enjoyable experience. And I was glad to reconnect with the British Museum, something I have been avoiding.
Yeah, me too. And that cup of coffee, that was really nice, because going around a museum, you actually need a cup of coffee and you could actually enjoy it.
Yeah, it should be nice for £3.60.
Yeah, that's true.
That's all from us for now. Don't forget to check out our blog post and also the Daily London for inspiration for things to do in London for Londoners. And of course, get yourself on a guided walk. It'd be lovely to see you.